You see my lovely Ziva, my Central Asian Shepherd. She's in the room with me right now. If you happen to hear some snoring, it's Ziva snoring. She is, to me, the most beautiful dog in the history of the world and also the most serious. She is the most loving, the most kind, and she will take you out if you do something wrong in our direction. Lesson 2, quantitative literacy, Math 11:11. We're celebrating the snow that I see in front of the ground on me right now. All right. What are we going to cover today? Well, we've got some praxis prep to cover. We are going to take that test down. We got some review material from our last lesson to go through, and then some new classwork contemplations for today. As far as the praxis goes, remember test savvy. We want to be really aware of how to take a test and how to maximize our score when we take the praxis so that we all pass and the doors to a future teaching career open wide in front of us. How do we solve equations, test-taking strategies in addition to techniques? Pythagorean theorem, something you're always going to see. Area of a polygon, we got to be able to do that, understanding in areas what's on the inside or the interior. And then, how does drawing diagrams help? So here's our first question. Let's have you do stop and start. Okay. So the correct answer, 63. You should never miss a question that has an equation and its solutions on the test. So if there are 4 questions that say, what's the value of x? And they give you 4 in an equation, and they give you 5 answers, you should never miss it. First, hopefully you know how to solve the equation. But if you don't, you do know how to check. You just substitute each choice in. As far as how to properly solve this guy, 15 minus x is negative 48. Now remember, we talked the other day about how you check in front of Lindquist, Mr. and Mrs., to see which it is. Is it a male Lindquist or is it a female Lindquist? And likewise, you look in front of a number to see if it's a positive or a negative. So you peek in front of the 15, it's a positive, so I have to do negative. Now, why do I make this point? Because many students confuse this negative sign in the middle between the 15 and the x as having something to do with the 15. It has absolutely nothing to do with the 15. It has everything to do with the x. That 15 is a positive, which is a plus. So I do the opposite and I minus. I didn't touch the negative x. Danger, danger, danger. This is the second most deadly type of math problem in the whole world. One little bite from this beauty, you're gonna. So you've got to make sure that you bring that negative down with the x. It's so common for students to forget to do that. Then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. See, negative 48 and negative 15 is negative 63. Then I divide that by negative 1, and I get 63. But let's say that you weren't so sure of your answer. Let's say you were afraid of that negative sign there, that deadly poisonous bite. Well, you could just check your answers. Check all the choices. 15 minus 63 is negative 48. Negative 48, yes. 15 minus 5.2, well, that's 9.8. No. 15 minus negative 93, that's 108. I don't think so. 15 minus 93, no, that's negative 78. And 15 minus a negative 63, that's 78. So you can just check your answers. Try this one here. Choose the correct solution for the equation. So if you solve this the correct way, you're going to subtract 17 from both sides, which is going to give you negative 4x. Don't forget that's a negative 4x. It's 63. Dividing by negative 4, and you're going to get 63 divided by negative 4 is negative 9. But you can also just check all your choices. And I'm only going to show you the choice that does check. The correct answer is negative 9. 17 minus 4 times negative 9. Negative 4 times negative 9 is positive 36. 17 and 36 is 53. 53 does equal 53. Booyah! That's the answer. I didn't bother putting up the correct step-by-step solution to that equation for multiple reasons. Number one, we cover it later in the year. So if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to until we cover it later anyway, so you don't need to see it. And if you do know what you're doing, the explanation I just gave you, you said, okay, I got that. So it wasn't necessary to put it up. And plus, of course, the skill we're trying to get you to understand is the skill of being able to substitute the values in an equation that are the possible solution and just check the equation. Okay, Pythagorean theorem. We could call it a squared plus b squared is c squared. If you do that, you always have to remember the c is the hypotenuse, or Leg squared plus leg squared is the hypotenuse squared. Go ahead, solve. Okay, so if I go with leg squared plus leg squared is hypotenuse squared, I got 5 squared plus n squared is 13 squared. 25 and n squared is 13 squared, by the way, is 169. Subtracting the 25, I get n squared is 144. Square rooting both sides, n is 12. Okay, good. Let's go to the next one. A little stop and start time. Go ahead. Okay, so again, leg squared plus leg squared is hypotenuse squared. You could be writing a squared plus b squared is c squared. Doesn't make a difference. All the same. But I am concerned if you do it that way, because if they put c on the side of a leg, it's been shown most students will get it wrong. So the first leg is 8. Remember, the legs make up the right angle. First leg is 8. Second leg is 15. The hypotenuse is directly across from the right angle, so that is n. So 8 squared plus 15 squared is n squared. 8 squared is 64. 15 squared is 225 equals n squared. Add them up. They're on the same side there. That would give me 289. Square root of 289 is 17. Don't mind my little squared here. I should have taken it off. I didn't. I apologize. N is equal to 17. That is the correct solution. A little bit of a review with formulas here. You should recognize what a rectangle looks like, what a parallelogram looks like. The reason the formula for area of a parallelogram is base times height. The reason the triangle is half of that is because you split a parallelogram in half to make a triangle. And the area of a circle is pi r squared. Okay, those are just reminders of figures, what they look like. Find the area of this particular figure. Go ahead. Stop and start time. Okay, so to find the area of the whole trapezoid, we got to find the area of the rectangle in the middle, and then don't forget the triangles on the sides. So the area of the rectangle is going to be 6 by 14, 6 meters times 14 meters. And as we practiced last week, 6 times 14 is 84, and meters times meters is meters squared. But we now have to consider the base of the triangle. Now look, I know the height here is 6, but I don't know the base yet. So 6 squared plus n squared is 10 squared. Focusing just on the triangle over here. And remembering that the opposite sides of a rectangle are equal. So I get 6 squared plus n squared is 10 squared. 36 and n squared is 100. Subtracting the 36, n squared is 64. Square root, n is 8. So I get to put an 8 right in there. And this height over here is 6. So the area of a triangle is half the base times the height, which is half of 6 times 8, which is 24. And of course, that's meters squared. So if I do 84 plus 24 plus 24, I get 132 meters squared. I was a little sloppy with the meters squared there under the area of a triangle. Could have cleaned it up a little bit. Just understand it's area, and the whole problem was done in terms of meters, and areas are always squared. So it would be meters squared. There you go. Woman wants to park her 15-foot long car in a garage that's 21 feet long. We already talked about how we're going to assume that the wheels are at the very end of the car. How far from the front of the garage will her wheels need to be so the car is centered on the floor of the garage? Again, they might as well say how far does the front of the vehicle need to be. Okay, draw a diagram. Go ahead. Okay, 21 is that length. I'm going to fit the car inside of it. And the car we said was 15 foot long. So you have 6 feet left over between the front and the back. That's 3 feet each. That's my correct solution. All right, so there's all of our work with some praxis review. That's enough for our first video.